This is the first class at Shelley's house, perhaps the beginning of many, expanding the terrain and helping to fill spaces with the communal experience of people finding one-pointedness and sitting together in a way that rarely happens other than in baseball games, football games, and things of that nature. This is the undramatic version of that. This is sitting in stillness and seeing where it leads. And unfortunately, our culture, other than going to the movies together or going to theater or opera or music, or gathering together and giving our attention to something that keeps us stimulated, this is sitting together and allowing all of one's attention to come into a singular space, the doorway to which is inside. There's nothing to watch outside except this boring person. And after a while, you don't want to just keep staring at this face. So what you do is you look at this face and you enter into your own heart. And as you go deeply inside, you discover this ocean of oneness, if you will, this place of unusual upliftment that is sitting there waiting to be found on a daily basis and rarely accessed. People stumble upon it. You look at a little baby and suddenly this thing goes, and you think the baby did it. You go to a movie and you feel all of this stuff going on inside you and you think the movie did it. You have a wonderful meal and everything is going well and there's social activity and everybody's in flow and there's a kind of a joy in the communal activity and you give them the credit. But the reality is you have stepped into a place inside yourself that is expansive in its embrace of the what is. What we are trained to do is to constantly look outward. We're trained to say, I need someone to love. I need someone to give me this experience. I need knowledge. I need a book. I need a movie. I need something that will give me this. Very few people know that it's really you bringing it to the occasion that is what is happening. You arrive at the music. You arrive at the performance. Or in some cases, the performance comes out and grabs you. But in one way or another, you've become engaged by the outer and the inner, and you feel something really special. Sort of why you want to be alive. What feels good. What life is about. But nothing is instructing you that there is an avenue to that place in normal, daily, educational terms. When did anybody in your elementary school, in your high school, in your university setting, in your master's or doctorate thesis program ever tell you the world you're looking for is right in the middle of your heart? Maybe you were lucky, but most people don't get that instruction. We need to have a kind of an initiation, something that turns us inward. And there are various things that do that. Unfortunately, one of them is grief, horrible loss. Sometimes it's a drug experience, and the drugs that expand consciousness rather than limit it. And then there are people who go, oh, I got to do that every day. But that's not true. The drug experience merely says, it's there, find a path. There are people who have spontaneous mystical experience. Suddenly they're awakened to something beyond their experience and expectation. And they go, and then they lose it. And they don't know how to get it back, because where do you go? But if you're lucky, you do start a search. And that search usually leads you to people who talk about mystical, transformative experience. And then you discover there are whole religions. Buddhism, Hinduism, even at the core of mystical Judaism and Christianity. There are extraordinary avenues to this space. The Sufism in the Muslim traditions. There are people within each tradition who tell you there's a path to this knowing that doesn't require anything outside you. It's just there. It's there. And it is waiting for you. It's all it does. It just waits. And when it sparks into liveliness and you fall in love with the experience of it, you don't have enough training or enough knowledge base to know how to go back to it, other than to go to another baseball game and then you lose and you're miserable, or whatever it is, the thing is that served you last week isn't serving you this week, and you start to disparage the things around you that can't continually feed you the thing you want. It's deeply frustrating. Life in its impermanence causes much suffering. The stupidity is the place that will allow you to move beyond suffering is right here. It's a doorway. In the heart chakra, it's in all of your chakras really, but the heart chakra is exceedingly accessible. You can walk into this chakra, and as I talk about in the introductory class, the door opens. There's a welcoming, an embrace that takes you in and makes you feel, wow, this is really beautiful. And all you have to do is sit still and enter. What do we do when no one is telling us that's possible? Well, we do everything I was just describing. You live a life of ignorance and missing the point. If you stumble upon or are lucky enough through whatever karmic history to find your way to this spot, you are transformed. You may want to teach other people how to do it, but you may want to do nothing else than just love everybody in the world, everyone around you. You'll just walk around going, and it's not exactly love, because that gets complicated. It's really feeling for, or as the Dalai Lama will say, compassion. Because what you see in everyone around you is this horrible ignorance. This horrible dependence on the next thing that will make them happy. If you travel in mid-America, most people have put on this enormous amount of weight because the one thing that guarantees a kind of momentary happiness is fatty, sweet food. Okay? People do that. And they don't stay happy very long, because our culture criticizes them ultimately for being obese. But that's a doorway to some kind of happiness. You know, falling in love, having children, having all of these different things that you think will bring it. Anybody who's fallen in love, had children, all of these things knows some days yes, some days no. It's quite variable. But this is not variable. It's not variable. It's there. It does take this willful agreement to sit down, be quiet, and give it time to reveal itself. It's not just like, knock, knock, can I come in? Yes, of course, come on in, come in. It's not like that. It's like, knock, knock. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Knock, knock. And you do it long enough, and you do it sincerely enough, and you actually begin to make a noise, and the door goes, hi, come on in. It's sort of like to wait until you feel worthy of being there. If you sit long enough and ask hard enough, when you enter, you will be greatly appreciative of what you find. If it just opened sporadically all the time, there would be no value to it. If you want to know the essence of value itself, go there. Going into the heart, into the inner chakra systems, entering inside, you discover what value, meaning, quality of life is. We are living in what we might call stressful times. Honestly, in many places in the world, that's all there is. Stressful times. We have been blessed by living in a society and a country that has been predictable on some level, knowable, accessible. It had its dramas and its difficulties, but it was something that was manageable by each of us every day. We could live knowing that the world, in a way, was somewhat predictable and supportable, and we could get through the day feeling somehow not threatened by day-to-day life. And that's really changing. And some people think spiritual discourse shouldn't talk about it. Don't talk about that stuff. We're trying to get away from that stuff. Well, I'm actually trying to tell you how to get away from it. Not that you can escape it, because we are facing the inescapable, which is in fact called life. There's only one out, and it comes at the end. Otherwise, you're in it for the duration. And when it becomes perverse and psychotic, as it appears to be doing, and has done many times in the history of the world, human beings are forced to deal with this awfulness, which can be cataclysmically awful. And maybe if we were to take this discussion today into the full realm of what is going on around us, we would see cataclysm not too far in the distance. That changes the genome. It changes the biology of your being. When you are threatened by what is, by the world around you, when you start to see it coming at you in unfriendly terms, what to do? Everybody will make choices. You're probably already on some decision-making path. You know, this next month is going to be really interesting because the world is going to start to shift one direction or another direction, and God knows where it will all go. But we're in for a long and difficult ride. And I tell you that not to be scary and not to throw stuff out there. I think this is known. I think we all know it. I think something is starting to register in the mass mind that we're all caught in something that is really complicated. And if there's ever been a time to find your way into a place of refuge, into a place of quietude, into a place of restoration, this is the time. It's not to escape the world, it's not to turn away from the world, it's to see it from this deep place of stillness and compassion. Those of you who've had mystical experience or psychedelic experience or whatever, understand that the world as we know it, the physical manifested world, is not what it appears to be. It is a kind of assemblage of molecular dream materials that create this dynamic of life, which is not an easy thing. This world is positive and negative, dualities moving around each other, constantly creating the dramas, the narratives, the beauty, and the horror of human experience. We're all in it. If you've had a mystical moment, or whatever kind of moment you want to call it, you break out of the mold, and what you experience is a context in which all of this is playing. Some people tend to describe it as you find the sky that surrounds the clouds. There are the storm clouds happening right now in a very big way, but the mystical being sees the sky in which that is contained in an endless changeable space. But the unchangeable space is the sky in which all of this takes place. Those who think you can take a rocket ship into the vastness of being only go back into the depth of vast potential of what the world is. But you will never discover in the exploration of the outer the mystical context in which all of the drama occurs. The door to all of that is here. It's ultimately very simple. If you want to live in difficult times or even in good times, if you want to be able to touch life with your heart and not run, if you're looking for safe space, I can only tell you the world will not offer it. You can do the best you can do. You can buy a house in Nova Scotia or whatever people are doing these days. You can find your way elsewhere, but there's no safety in impermanence. There's no safety because the very thing seeking safety is impermanent and ultimately destroyable and will be destroyed. It will end. But the shocking thing that a mystic learns, or that somebody who has really worked spiritually for many years, or someone who's journeyed quickly into the interior of being, what you learn is that this is all a phantasmagoric display, but it has unbelievable manifested quality, intensity, reality, that is, in a sense, an imprint of that which is not materialized. It's an imprint of something vast and beyond, and the doorway to that vast oceanic space is here. And if you take the time to breathe, to sit still, to open, if you can get past your fear of stillness, past your fear of wanting to be distracted all the time, past your fear of nothingness, if you can do that and you can enter the portal, it will provide for you the knowledge base in which you can navigate the incredibly alternating, changing, dualistic, good and evil dynamics of the human space that we inhabit. This is survival. This is the only place that I think anybody can go to realize that you are everything that's happening around you, and you are the space in which it's occurring. Everything that's happening around you will, in fact, at some point disintegrate back into its component parts, and those component parts are who you are. You are the vastness of being, and you are the witness to the story. My mother used to always say to me in a movie, "Honey, it's only a movie." And I will tell you that as well. It's only a movie. On the other hand, when you're in a really good movie, there you are. You're caught in the drama, in the narrative, in the hope for, the expectation of, in the desire for happy endings. We all want happy endings. Happy endings are a fiction on some level because they're part of a world of changeability and impermanence where there is no such thing as ending. What's a happy ending? There is an ending, maybe, because you die at some point, but is that an ending? Well, I'm telling you, the journey inward will say no to that. There is no ending in the way you imagine. You happen to have a doorway into the infinite, into the eternal. And not only do you have a doorway into it, you are the infinite and eternal itself. But for you to know that, you have to let go of everything that separates you from it. Everything that separates you. The disintegration of the mind-body idea is really challenging. We all let go of the easy stuff. Okay, I won't have salt anymore. But the real stuff to let go of is seeing, smelling, sunrise, having a body, feeling. That's the hard stuff. And you let go of it incrementally, a little bit at a time, until you get good at it. And you let go, and then they show you the thing you're not ready to let go of. It's shocking how much you are not willing to let go of until the very end. They either pull you out or you're so uncomfortable in this universe that you finally just say, let me out. And you let go. What is discovered in that final letting go is something you can discover today. You don't have to wait for the body to fall apart. You don't have to wait for the mind to evaporate. You can actually find the space now that is the space that in fact is the very essence of where you live. You can find it now, you can live in that space, and you can feel what I can only describe as the gratitude and the wonder of being in it. This is an amazing place. Manifested form is remarkable, and the epitome of manifested form for the human mind and body is something called joy and beauty and love, pleasure. This is no accident that we're here in this world. This is not something that's happening by chance. You have no idea, nor can you have an idea, how this ever came into being. But if you enter into the world from this inner space, you will witness it as the miracle that it is. If you're just in the world, it's full of suffering. Because we are entering into a time that we in Western society haven't had before, because it's so disruptive, so disturbing, so filled with antagonisms and fake news, fake truth. And you are going to find in months to come, years to come, truth will be hard to find. Even if you just read the newspapers today, people are manipulating truth in so many different ways that it really will be hard to distinguish what is true. Except if you find the pathway in. It won't tell you about truth in terms of analytically analyzing everything that's going on around you. You will simply know truth as its own pure expression. You will know your own inner being. Your inner being is infused with truth. It is truth. Not an interpreted being, not a being that you're analytical, trying to grasp and understand. Being that is ungraspable. Being that is unknowable in any kind of intellectual way. It's more accessible emotionally than it is in the mind. And even that has to, in a sense, be let go of. But once you enter into truth, in a way you shut up. I always feel so stupid when I give these talks because I know how approximate they are, how little they actually capture, how little they actually reference what's going on. You need a poet like Rumi who talks, and then while you're listening to his poetry, suddenly something in you has about a tenth of a second of total awareness because he tricked you into knowing. Great artists trick you into knowing the truth. People like me just talk about it. It's not the same, but I will promise you, if you take the time to get past your fear of stillness, to just sit still in the midst of the uproar of noisy madness going on around us, just go, wait a minute, whoa, I can't do this anymore. Sit down, get quiet, go inside, and you will go, thank you. It's a real journey, and the exploration inside is not like you go inside and suddenly you're in touch with totality, although you are. But the journey is, when you go inside, it's just like going outside. You move through it. It expands, it breathes. I can't even describe what it does, but the isness of it is so non-graspable. You just get to be one with it. And not only to be one with it, to know that you've never been anything but one with it. And then you go, and it's timeless, it's spaceless, it's totality. And you are that. That's the promise of all this. And how much of it you can take back into the world during your day, well, you'll figure that out. What you can do with it in terms of making money, I don't know. I guess you could sit and do this for money, but it's what you really want is to look at someone in the eye, touch somebody, share in some simple way this incredible, inexpressible reality that we are. We need to know how to do this now. Things are getting tougher. Again, I don't want to be the harbinger of bad things, but you can just read the New York Times, read the Washington Post, go to CNN, go to Fox News, I don't care. Go wherever you go, and you will get an imprint of what the world is doing right now. And they're scared of what's coming. You don't want to live in that. You don't want to live in that. You may have no choice. The outer world we are locked into laws and forces like gravity, like you live where your house is, like your family is your family, your body is your body. Nothing you're going to do about that. But with all of those givens, there is this thing in every person that is liberated, free of all that. Everyone. And the path to it, it's not this meditation or that meditation or anybody's anything. It's sitting still. Sit still and find your way in to who you are. And that will bring everything you're looking for. And it will be the navigation system through very turbulent waters, which are coming at us as we speak. It's the only way I know, and if you find a better way, tell me. But right now, I know you had better begin to do this. Because if you don't do this, watch what happens in turbulent waters. Watch what happens when hurricane, I forget the Florence, I forget the names. Watch what happens when turbulence happens. Watch how protected you are. Turbulence is arising. We are in those kind of times. Now is the time to find the strength and the courage to get inside and then not hold on to that because that won't work. To get inside and let go. You can't hold on to anything. Holding separates. Letting go unites. You are the thing you want to hold on to. You don't have to hold it. Just be it. Be yourself in all of this journey, and you will arrive at the place you have always been, which is with you, with your own persona, your own personality, your own truth, your own being, and that's a truly beautiful thing that came into being in the biggest sense, in the material sense, and that came into being because it is infinitely a manifestation of infinite being. There are only so many ways to say this, and I think I've said them all just now. So I'm going to stop, but I will finish with the word urgency. This is urgent. This is not something to put off. This is something to do now, not out of fear, not out of search for safety. It is because it's why you were born. Find out who you are. Settle into that. You will be grateful. The end. Any questions or concerns? Great. Yes.
I have a question.
Okay.
When I seem to approach that place, I feel love wells up as a lot of tears and sadness. So love is mixed in with all that, and that's the part I feel good that I can get there because I feel, am moved. But then moving beyond that, I have no concept of where I would go from there. So
Yeah,
that's where I get.
You can't have a concept where to go. But you have to go there and sit.
Okay.
Because that place, which is a dual system, it's, love also incorporates loss. Having and losing are part of the same thing. Love has so many aspects to it. And so what happens when there's an identity with it, when you go into that space and you feel it as yours, there's you having it, and then that creates all sorts of conflicts, all sorts of wanting to hold it and not lose it. And the very desire to do that separates you from the thing you're ultimately looking for. That's why this journey is not a simple journey where someone just sits down and just dives into that space. Because as you dive in, you take all of you with you. And the trick is to ask inside for help to let go of all of that stuff, to let go of the you that's trying to go there. Only by letting go of the you does the reality of it start to refer itself into the larger picture. And you go, oh. And then there will be a part of you that grabs it. I don't care how big you get. There's always, some of the biggest spiritual teachers are people who own this. And that's dangerous. Not dangerous in the sense of Trump danger, but it's dangerous in the sense that there's an ego identifying with this thing that is going on. What we're looking to do, and the reason you ask for help to surrender over and over, is because everything that identifies with it limits it and creates a larger version almost of the struggle. So please help me, please help me. Let go, let go. And then the journey is, it's hard to explain it, but it's like the best movies ever. You're going deeper and deeper into these places that have the potential to trap you in something really exquisite. And you have to know, no, let go. The whole teaching, let go. Because as long as there's a you there to hold on, and there will be for a long time, but as long as that's there, it's in its subtle way entrapping you. So the journey is one of exquisite surrender, trust, courage. And it goes on and on and on. And it takes great souls, in a way, to make that ride, but you're already on it. And you are, in essence, a great soul, because you are the great soul. So, open to that. Please.
You said something that it's easier to enter there through emotions.
To enter.
To enter, in other words, the inner door.
Mm-hmm.
You said it's easier to enter there through emotions. How do you see emotions playing into a spiritual path like this?
Let me use a different word, because emotion has a lot of latent qualities about it. Use the word feeling. It's a feeling process. Sometimes that goes into emotion. Sometimes it goes into a quietude. It goes into a clarity. Something happens with feeling that doesn't necessarily happen with intellect and mind. And so you can go into places with feeling that you have to leave the mind behind. You know, when in Dante's Inferno, Beatrice was reason. You know, you had to leave reason behind to go into the deeper parts of the heavenly experience. You can't take reason. You can't take an analytic force into those places. You have to be willing to let it go. And we're so trained in Western society to be intellectual, to think and to know things through the mind, that this idea of feeling is kind of a secondary force. But in truth, as you go deeper, it's the more primary. And you will feel things you've never felt before. And some of it's scary, because it's like, what is that? What is that? And because they're not all, it doesn't all just say happy, sad. It's really nuanced in so many ways. And you go, okay, and you just follow these forces into places that you don't have a clue what this is, you know. And if the mind at all gets engaged at that point, it gets scared. So you have to then feel scared and let go of feeling scared as you go deeper, which involves more trust and more courage. So you evolve into this very powerful letting go being that just says yes to the what is. It's a big journey, but it's you can do it. I've been on this journey for 50 years and have achieved something. You have no idea how. If you looked at me as a kid in Detroit, Michigan, you would not point to this kid and say, this kid's going to have a life of the Spirit. It wasn't even there. But everything was leading there. And once it started to open up, for some reason, I said yes instead of no. When Rudy said to me, you're going to have to do this every day for the rest of your life, I said, I didn't blink. Of course. I was ready to take this on. Why? I don't know. It was self-chosen in a way. Each of us has to make that choice. We just have to go, this is what I want. What's the alternative? What's the alternative? The alternative is you get a great job paying you $1 million a year or whatever it is, and you still die. You still haven't figured anything out. You still go through your kids not talking to you. You know, what's the alternative to this deep, subtle experience of feeling your way into truth? It's an amazing journey. Anyway, I know I've gone way beyond emotion here, but it's feeling more than emotion that will guide you on this journey. Anybody else? The wisdom just spreads. Okay. So thank you. Thank you for coming. This really did work out very well. The house really will, the walls will contain this. It's really very beautiful, and thank you for letting us use your home and have this experience here. And thank all of you for coming. It's really an extraordinary experience, and how we continue exactly. There are classes in San Rafael on Sundays, most Sundays. Anyone who wants to be on the mailing list should speak to my wife Blanche, who's over here, if you're not already on the mailing list. And we can try to do this again, because I know for many of you, having a class in Oakland is easier than traveling to San Rafael. But as I said earlier to some of the new students, You know, sometimes the journey to the class is more important than the class. And it's primarily because it represents your willingness to reach for it, your willingness to put out for it. I think, I don't know this as a fact, but I think the universe pays attention to that. And it rewards is the wrong word, but it gives in relationship to what you put out. So if you want to come to San Rafael, it's very comfortable, and otherwise we'll try to figure out maybe how to move this class around to other places where people can come who don't want to make that kind of effort. But thank you for coming today. It's been great to meet all of you, and I really appreciate it.